And now may I invite Mr. Shivir, Director Product Marketing, SQL Server and Data Platform, and Ms. Preethy Krishnamurthy to do the honors, please, and present this next. A round of applause, and I think we can do a little bit of energy, ladies and gentlemen.
You're a bank. No, you're a trader. Generating over 100 million trades per day. Processing 200,000 transactions per second. Where a second could cost or make you millions. Or maybe you're a specialist hospital, providing the most efficient care possible, using technology to prevent an onset and inform vital information fast, predicting the health of your patients before they know it. No, you're a fast food cafe, able to take real-time action on the choice of your pizza variety, able to foresee what is selling well and act on it, run a promotion one day and know whether to order less or more by the next. Or maybe you're a research institute, forecasting floods before the rain starts to fall, predicting the threat before it impacts lives. Wait, you're a steel plant, monitoring the safety of over 25,000 employees, controlling access, regulating process, following policies. The power of data is transforming the world. When used to its potential, it holds the promise to solve our toughest problems, to disrupt the competitive landscape and create new business opportunities. That's why an end-to-end data platform can provide you with the best insights to take the right decisions. For the complete solution, Microsoft Data Platform.
Very cold. I really didn't expect Delhi to be this cold in the morning, really. And I come from Bangalore, fairly on the 18-19 degrees. And the recent news on all the smog in Delhi kind of got me a little worried. And when I land here, it's extremely cold, got a cold myself. But anyway, great to be here. Thank you so much for coming in so early in the morning. And it's really a pleasure to host all of you. I met a few of the customers in the morning, some of you in the morning. And it was fairly interesting to hear a lot of perspective from each of you. And I realized that a lot what we do isn't known to you guys. A lot what you guys do, we really don't know what you're doing. So really, it's a fair, good, interesting exchange of ideas and thoughts. And the only thing which I took at the end of it is there's lots more we can do together. Yeah, that's really thought after those conversations. But anyway, my name is Shivir. I come from the data group. We do everything from managing your data right up to insights and actions. So really, the entire length and breadth, and a lot of what you guys do is on the analytics and the algorithms, all of that is something which we work through. So let's see if I can take you through some of the interesting things we're working through. How many CMOs in the room? That's one. I saw a few more as well. I read something interesting yesterday, and this is on the net. 57% of the CMOs interviewed of a survey are going to outspend the CIOs in their organizations. Right? Very interesting. On IT. Right? Very interesting. I'd never thought we'd probably see a day where CMOs are going to outspend CIOs on IT. It's clearly giving you a direction as to where the business is heading. It's clearly telling you cost of acquiring a customer is becoming critical to run a business, and hence the CMO is becoming very pivotal to use technology to get customers, sell, cross-sell, and build the business. Very, very different perspective, and it's a very nice Gartner report sitting on the net. We must read it. Very interesting. But let me tell you some more very interesting facts. One thing I picked up was there's an entire chasm, right? You have the brick and mortar companies, the omni-channel retail, and you have the e-com companies. And if you actually just step back and look at both sides, both are pretty much doing the same thing, right? Just think about it. You had the e-com companies build fabulous front ends, and what they did, they're trying to fix the back end. Right? That's all they're trying to do. They're going to fix their supply chain, their inventory, their ordering, their forecasting, and they're pretty much doing what the traditional brick and mortar are very good at doing. They built their businesses building very strong inventory, store presence, and so on and so forth. And now they're trying to become like the e-commerce companies by having a digital face to their business. A really very interesting circle in that sense. You really wouldn't know over time whether For example, Pepper Fry, I really didn't expect them to go back and open retail outlets, right? The core business model was really e-commerce, right? But that's really where the world's really taking a 360. And that's where the CIO is going to play a very pivotal role in the business. And the lead's really going to be CMO to a large extent, the product manager in companies such as yours, as well as the way the customer acquisition happens. And that's really what I want to spend most of my time today. But one interesting data point which we picked up, and we realized that there was a business of about $94 billion, and this is a global number, but just sitting because there is lack of analytics happening, right? Very true. We see that with customers in India as well. It's very one-sided analytics. Another very interesting facet is almost 70% of the retail e-commerce CIOs do want to adopt cloud, but 40% are doing it today. But really, the reason I bring this element of cloud in is when you get into a B2C conversation, when you get into a C2C conversation, cloud's got to be very imperative and important right behind your digital platform. Because things you do is something I'll speak about. But just keep these two numbers in mind because clearly there's great amount of opportunity which you're missing, right? I spoke about, very quickly about, the traditional and the real e-commerce companies and how, pretty much both of them are seeing. But if you actually look at the journey across, there is nothing called, in reality, nothing called omnipresent retailers, mom and shops, or e-commerce companies, really. The fact of the matter is the consumer decides what he wants to buy, where he wants to buy, and you got to be relevant to him everywhere. He might get onto your store and still look at something. He might still get and buy the same, product out of your store in a retail presence. So really for you will have to create the experience for him which is similar if not the same, better if not the same. So I don't think there is, I heard my colleague Shamik just speak about saying there is no better experience than a physical retail experience. But I think clearly the e-commerce companies are trying to better that every day. I see a lot of work happening on the video analytics, for example, things like which you can actually drill down into products you're selling through. That's happening. That's far better experience for me on the net, right? But really, the world's really getting to a stage where the customer is deciding what he wants to do, and you got to be relevant to him in every space, whether it's on-prem, whether it's on the net. You got to be aware of what he wants and when he wants, and that's clearly a factor of you trying to aggregate different sets of informations from different sources. The complexity which I see with a lot of our e-commerce customers in India is, a bunch of very, very smart people doing very, very smart algorithms and building very, very core technologies. And I was with one of the large retailers, large e-com companies in Bangalore, very large. And I realized that on their maturity curve, they're fairly mature. They're ahead of Amazon, and you probably know whom I'm speaking about. And I realized that they've built in so many superb point solutions on different stacks. The integration of that conversation over time, having a seamless customer conversation isn't going to happen. The data can't pass through easily. So the ability for that organization to now react, analyze things on real time isn't happening. Because they've done a lot of small things very well, built a lot of algorithms, but none of them really speak to each other over time. So that's the complexity which an e-com company today gets into. You have a great idea, you have a great algorithm, you have a great analytics engine, but then that's just not the only business. Over time, that's going to be an aggregation of multiple such ideas. And the thought process really is you start today. Because your customer is really looking at different sources of data. He's looking at data from the net. He's possibly tweeting things about your product. He's possibly tweeting about your category, right? And you still need to pick that up and give him an offer. He's sitting in a store, he's possibly, running through different stores, either online or offline. You should be able to give him a coupon. The more important piece really is how do you match your inventory? How do you match your forecasting down to every bit of customer sale? Can I go back and knock off an inventory which is relevant, which for me is actually killing my internal cost today, is increasing my interest? Can I move that back further to a set of customers who I can run a coupon? Can I cross-charge that? Can I move my inventory from locations, from warehouses on real-time basis and have a promo maybe running in Kolkata during the puja sale? Can I take these decisions on real-time basis? I think those will be the clear differentiators in the way business will run moving forward. And hence I come back to my original point. It really isn't about what kind of retail you are in. what kind of format you're in, right? It's really about the customer. Are you able to understand what he needs, when he needs, on real-time basis? Quickly change your promos and your analytics around that on real-time basis. Marry that to your stock and inventory and your forecast and the plan around that. And at the same time, see how do you quickly get your high profitable products out faster as a sale and cycle them faster to run your business every day. I think all of this now integrates as a complexity into 7 or 8 different source of information in a company. If you actually come to think of it, you're talking about an inventory system, you're talking about a financial system, you're talking about the marketing engine, you're talking about your platform, your core business platform, and you're talking about the entire analytics around it, right? And then you add the entire world of social and all of the information sitting out. It's going to be a big marriage of sorts, right? Now let me tell you some of the scenarios we're pretty much seeing in retail. I spoke about things you can do around your stock and inventory, right? Clearly, you could look at the platform and start building solutions around analytics, around couponing, offers, warehouse options of where your inventory is sitting, and marry them to the customer needs. I think those will clearly be the needs of e-commerce companies as they start maturing the backend. Now, you can't be ordering too much. You can't be sitting on stock which is irrelevant, right? How do you get that out? How do you get that tied up to the marketing engine, right? That's something which is a lot of work we're doing. You're also looking at customer wish list, and I'm spending a lot of time on the customer side really because the customer behavior is changing faster than you can imagine, right? Every single time there's a trend which is changing. Every single time there's an influence of the Western world, and before you know, blue is in and red is out, right? That's reality of our business today. The consumers change their opinions very, very fast. Are you able to pick the trend? Have you ordered too much red when blue is in? These are huge business challenges which come every day. Or should you just make red very interesting in a part of India and move stock there, right? So significance of events, significance of changes, fashion trends, all of these have tremendous impact in the way you're going to analyze and build your business moving forward. Can you do this on real time? Of course you can. Of course you can, right? Some of the common problems which we've encountered with a lot of the companies and the mature e-commerce as well as the omni-channel retail is really, for example, I spoke about customers changing, but for example, a lot of them are saying the technology at a point in time is irrelevant, right? I'm unable to take decisions on real time. I'm unable to, the complexity I've built in, I'm unable to take decisions on real time. I'm unable to integrate different sources of data and figure out one single truth of a customer. Do I know, for example, that a person, comes from this background, has these relationships, has these lifestyle requirements, is interested in these kind of fashion trends, owns these kind of, luxury goods, and hence could be potentially candidates for 1, 2, 3, 4 of my categories. That kind of insight, and then his entire relationship across his social, then his entire relationship across his Twitter feeds and so on and so forth, what he actually goes back and speaks about in terms of his political agenda and so on and so forth. Can you marry all of that and build a trend? Do you know that he's politically incorrect, towards an Aam Aadmi party? At the same time, he has an affinity towards, buying something which is more, khadi oriented, for example, right? Very two contrasting conversations. But can you marry that to a logic? Can you derive something and say, hey, maybe this is more relevant to him, right? Such kind of analytics will really be the need of the hour for the companies, right? And that's where we see things happening. I don't dwell too much, but I just want to spend a few quick thoughts, and these are something you guys will probably be seeing across your businesses today. I think there is a complete lack of seamlessness in the way IT is actually being built within the e-commerce companies today. There is clearly a very strong tech complexity which is coming in, right? And that's something needs to be resolved today. The reason I say this because if your foundation for a data flow is very, very easy, you can start building in more different analytics engine over that. But when you start having different applications which don't talk to each other and the data doesn't flow easily, your ability to be nimble doesn't happen. So for example, I'll give you, I was just speaking to somebody on, have you explored, running drones and an analytics engine over drones and actually pick up, information out of the vehicle you're trying to pick up. Wouldn't it be nice for somebody who's looking to buy a bike, go back and look at a nice video which has analytics built in and you pick up information of that vehicle. Very cool. I'd love to see something like that on the e-commerce side. But are you going to build another application? Are you going to build another set of application and then make it more complex over time? Will the customer journey of understanding his requirements from his own previous buying history onto different needs, onto different requirements be a very complex architecture? That's really where we're heading. And we're seeing this across the board with a lot of the companies we work with. And that's the reason, we take a step back and say, hey, we love what you're doing. It's a great idea. But hey, the future needs you to integrate far more. And that's a first step. And we've seen this. We've seen, and I told you about the brick and mortar versus the e-commerce companies, the front ends and the back ends. Really, the battle of the front end and back end is over. In my mind, it's no more about somebody built a cool web page, a cool e-commerce engine, and not figured out the back end, right? That's the struggle with people. The cost of acquisition, I hear, in India is the highest across, acquiring a customer. In some cases, it's been 1,500 rupees, just acquiring a customer, per customer. In some cases, some of the guys have figured out 800 rupees and 1,000 rupees. But really, 1,000 rupees, and if you look at the kind of money you're making, really, the amount of sale you need to make just to acquire back the money is massive. So which means your cross-selling capabilities, your capabilities to be nimble are very, very important, right? Very real scenarios, very real problems. But I think the point I want to make is the battle between front end and back end is over. It's really, to me, a situation where the e-commerce companies are building far robust backends right now. They have a great front end, and the omni-channel retail are building very, very strong digital places. And that's going to be a chasm, right? I spoke about customer insights and behavior changing rapidly. I think this is clearly an area where marketing needs to pick the trends. We really have a bunch of things we can do with you, right from helping you sell things off your digital, your platform, your portal, building in coupons. For example, we're doing something with a US bank, for example, where we looked at the portal with a very drab, most bank portals are very drab, apart from the ones you're logging into your account. But I don't think any one of us go to a bank to see, hey, what's the loan interest and so on and so forth. So really, nobody cares about a bank portal. We did a fair amount of business off their portal by actually making the portal very exciting. We ran promos, we ran coupons, we ran them, multiple cross-selling products just by having a very deep understanding of the customer, just off the same portal, right? So we ensured that the traffic went to the right place and you're able to close the lead. Now that's very critical, but that only happens if you have a deeper customer insight. Right? Things like that will be critical as you go forward. How do you get the customer to stay on your page? How do you get to stay on your portal and not just switch between 4 different airline sites, right? And not between aggregator. At the end of the day, you want him to stay there. You're able to hold him there, get his attention, make your sale, right? That's more of an interest to you. Can you just do it by throwing money? Of course, that's what's happening in the industry today. But can you just do it with making it more interesting, making it more insightful, telling him that, hey, you're looking at these few things. I can help you with 1, 2, and 3. Why don't we, get into a transaction, right? That will get him. You're inviting him into a conversation with you, right? That's really what we're going to help you with, and that's going to happen with insights, right? So I spoke about the user experience, but I'm just quickly getting to 3 relevant points which you want to take back at the end of this conversation. Really is, if we aren't going to create intelligence for your organization. And intelligence about your customer, which is far more than what the customer knows, we aren't going to be successful, right? That's really the objective. One thing which we see is your data needs are going to change, right? With the advent of artificial intelligence, chats and bots, with the entire drone technology, you're already seeing with social media and so on and so forth, the kind of data which you're capturing and managing is going to be far different than what we've always been used to, which means if you have something which is going to work on scale, on real time, you need a very different approach to your data, right? And third really is, all of the data is great. I would have collected, managed all of the different feeds. Am I able to take an action which is far faster than anybody else? Can I predict something before the event happens? Can I cognitively pick up a reaction? So for example, if I'm sitting with you, and if I have a camera which, example, looks at you and say, hey, you're very interested, or you're not interested, I take your face reactions very quickly and say, hey, this gentleman's interested. Maybe I can start a conversation by linking your profile back to what you'd be wanting to buy. We're actually looking at scenarios where we're mixing up a back-end customer support service, for example, back to a call center, and we're picking up live picture feeds of people actually reacting to a customer service. So for example, if I walk into a telecom company, customer service, I'm unhappy with the service, I have a very animated conversation with the person on the customer service side, right? The camera is picking up my emotions very quickly. It's picking up a set of algorithms off my face saying, I'm not happy, right? So if I know X is logged in on the console and looking at my complaint at the call center, I realize the customer isn't happy, he's going back very unhappy, my camera feeds are picking up information. I'm able to marry that information of his emotion back to his customer record, back to say, hey, before I lose him, let me call him. So what do? On real-time basis, I call the customer back and say, hey, thank you for visiting my outlet. I know your problem hasn't been solved. I understand that you had this requirement. Can I help you? You're changing the customer's emotion very quickly from being unsatisfied to saying, okay, somebody's calling me and somebody's bothered, before you lose the customer. If your cost of acquisition of a customer is 1,000, 1,500 rupees, on the e-commerce side, and if you're willing to lose customers at that cost, it's going to be a huge churn. So really for the guys in the marketing team, I'd really urge you to see, if you have a very seamless data platform, if you have a very seamless way of capturing different sources of information, if you're able to use the different sources of information and make intelligence out of that, that's really what you want to take back as companies, so that you get smarter than your competitors. And clearly the data point is very clear, and this is not something I'm making up, but 85% of the customers who use analytics vis-a-vis their peers, right, are far more successful than the rest of the industry which they operate in. Right? It's very true, and we're seeing this with customers. And it's not about doing analytics for one bit or one piece, right? It's really about running it across the different spheres. I would really challenge all of you to pick up a new area and say, hey, can we run this very differently and start analyzing this earlier than actually just aggregating information first, right? That's really where it is. And I'll just run you through a couple of things, and again I'll take an example of a bank, right? Because they've been far more mature, and it's a brick and mortar, and you realize some of the changes they're trying to do to get digital, right? But if you typically see a bank today, they have about 100, 200 applications. Every application has their own database, and really what happens is none of the applications have the intelligence to actually get one customer view. So if somebody is very smart and has budgets, the application owner, he will create some intelligence on his data, and he will use it for that particular application. But the bank on the whole doesn't really gain. So think of this in an e-commerce space, right? You have somebody who's selling different categories, right? Every category possibly has an application or a certain need, right? Every category then touches back to a common supply chain and so on and so forth. If you're able to get one single view of the customer, if you're able to get analytics which all of the categories can use, it's a great conversation for you to start across. All we're doing today in this technology is we're really bringing the analytics back to the database. And we're saying, do not make the applications very heavy, right? Do not have a different scoring model, different credit model, different customer risk models, all of them different. Have them as part of one data. Have one single version of the customer truth. And then you start running all of your applications on that data, right? Think of scenarios which you're going to build further, right? I spoke about AI and drones, and when all of those come in, you need a single source of truth of the customer. You can't create another application and then manage all of that. It's going to make it very complex, right? All we're trying to tell you is, hey, bring the intelligence on the database, have a single version of customer truth, and then you can really do a bunch of things across on analytics for them, right? This is something which most of them don't know. I had one of the customers saying, I don't know what you guys do, right? This is complex, and I'm not going to explain this chart to you, right? But this is our entire data platform. So today when you run a conversation from structured to unstructured, any volume, any velocity, be it information of the sensors you run on IoT, or whether you run cognitive services I spoke about of emotional or facial or text or whatever, you could actually run all of this on this platform. And I can tell you very clearly, across the world, across technologies, there is no single vendor who can do this. You have some great technology options as individual options. You would have somebody giving you a great platform to build very scalable architectures in Hadoop, somebody helping you build great algorithms, right? But to do it all, to make sense of it on a single platform, there is no technology vendor who can do that, right? And it's a great story. It again ties back to your broader point that should I be building a complex environment by doing things which are one to many, or should I be looking at one platform to run one conversation and make it more nimble fast, and take on any scale. Right? That's the scale conversation we speak about. Right? But clearly, we figured this out. I don't think there is a single doubt in my mind that any other competitor can actually do something like this. They can do bits and pieces of it, but we've really figured this out very well. Right? So, I'd be happy to take you through in the break, on some of the things we're doing. But think of it, everything from your artificial intelligence, your deep learning, your machine learning, your stream analytics, your IoT sensors, structured data, social media content, your data warehouse capabilities, all of this wrapped up on a single platform. Right? So just imagine a data can seamlessly pass through a platform. Right? Eventually, right, forget everything I spoke about for the last 15-20 minutes, right? It doesn't matter. At a given point in time, if you're able to take a decision, we've achieved our objective. At a given point in time, if you've taken a smarter decision than your competitor, we've achieved our objective, right? The intent of us, trying to do all of these different facets across all of the different areas you work through is really to get you to make more money, to know your customer better, right? And to make sense of your business, control it far better than what your competitors do. Right? All of this will eventually mean, how do I move your data to insights and insights to action? That's what we end up doing for most customers across the different spheres. So we've done a bunch of things for some of them we've done even picking up their customer emails on customer service, reading the emotion of that, a text analytics. I spoke about the video, I spoke about some cognitive capabilities on all of that. We've done things like choosing how you should place your goods on the certain site, what should be the right way. Image analysis is something we've done very well for some customers. So some of these things are very, very interesting conversations, and I'd be happy to spend time across. I've been given 20 minutes. I'll hand over the mic to Preethy, and she's going to do a quick demo of what I spoke about and show you some of the things we're doing with the customers. Go ahead, Preethy.
Thank you. Am I audible? Very good morning, everybody. I think over the last two sessions, we've heard and we've been thrown at like a whole bunch of technological terms like, say, image analytics, text analytics, retail is changing, technology can enable it. I'm actually going to show you a whole bunch of these, right? Let's kind of structure this in a three-way mode. The most common way in which you interact with your customers today is probably on your portal or your website. And I'm sure a lot of thought and work is going into how do I make that experience more interactive, more engaging, a lot differentiated compared to the other sites out there. So I'm going to show you 2 to 3 demos. I'm not saying you should just pick this up and put it up there on your websites, but these are technologies that are available today in a very democratized fashion, which means you can just pick this up, put your own wrappers and feelers around it, and still integrate your existing infrastructure without too many changes. So let's begin. We've all heard of bots, and we've all heard like standard bots saying, hey, hi, can you book a ticket? We've had digital assistants. What about a Q&A maker, right? Like forget the digitally savvy customer of yours who knows how to navigate your sites, who's not having questions about can I cancel my order, which is something very, very simple. But what about the new population you're trying to adopt to get to your websites? And these are probably the first questions that they like to know. And you don't want them to like search through your site and understand where can I ask these questions. So I'm going to do this on the fly. A lot of these are live demos, so let's see how well this works. So I've taken up the Snapdeal FAQ site here. So there are a bunch of questions that are out. So technically, if I have to know how can I cancel an order on this site, this is where I have to come and know that information. So what if I build a sort of a Q&A bot out of this standard set of questions? It's not going to be taking too much time. Like for here, you can see I'm going to create a new Q&A service. You give it a name, let's say test bot. So there are multiple ways in which I can feed or make this bot intelligent, which means if I have standard Q&A pairs that I know, I enter them here. Or if there is a file that I usually have, in many cases which you will, you can put that up here as an upload. Or you could just link it up to an existing URL. Like in this case, there are questions here in this URL. We're going to copy paste this here. And let's say extract. So what this is trying to do is this is text analysis. It's trying to understand what's happening on the page. It's understanding there are Q&A pairs. And that is going to be picked up from the content and be taught to the bot saying, hey, here are the standard Q&As which are available. And this is how you need to be responding. if you can see here, there are 14 Q&A pairs that have been created from that single URL. And then when we say next, usually as the case is, so you must have heard terms like machine learning, train your models. Very simple. So you've given it a standard 14 set question, but you obviously want to train it a little more. Like for example, your question there says, how can I cancel my order? Probably when I'm coming to the site, I'm going to say cancel order, order cancellation, like multiple variations to it. In some cases, the bot itself tries to understand this the more it gets to use it, and in some cases, you can train it as well. So that's this whole step, and I'm just going to like skip that on the training bit and actually say publish. So you can see here our bot is ready, which means this is a standalone service for the bot. But if you want to use it, say, inside your application, inside something you already have, you can always link it back to this, and this is basically an API which is being called by any application of yours. So let's test this out, right? Let's test this out in multiple ways. Let's pick a standard question here. It says, what is SD plus, right? Let me type that, SD plus. What is SD plus? See, all it does is it knows these are standard answers which are available and is just picking that out and giving it in a little more interacting form. Cancel orders by surface. So it can take different ways of it, right? It can give you a product link, it can give you standard FAQs, but the intention I wanted to show this is this technology is available. The way you use it for your business need is completely up to your creativity and your business, because you understand this a lot more than the rest of us do. So this was one way in which I thought we could spice up that website or customer portal of yours. Another one, we again heard face analytics, emotion analytics, cognitive services, and that's what I'm going to show you. This is actually tricky, and I don't exactly like doing this demo, but I'm still going to do it. I'll tell you why, and you'll understand why I don't like doing this demo. So when I say capture, it understands that I'm a girl, and that's a wrong age. I swear that's a wrong age. So it tries to understand from the image who you are, which means like multiple ways in which it understands that image. And from your learnings, it says what could be that best product that needs to be recommended for me, right? We've all heard of standard recommendation engines based on profiles and previous patterns, but here's another kind of recommendation engine, which is just from your images. And the interesting part is you need not do this for recommendation. This is image analytics. It could be you want to build interesting catalogs based on images that you get. Multiple use scenarios to it, but the underlying technology is I can do image analytics today, and it's that simple right here.
I just want to intervene here. And if you remember what I spoke about, I said eventually it's about engaging your customer on your portal, right? If I'm going to get the guy to continuously keep looking at stuff like this, play with things, her age may be wrong, but it's already got her engaged in saying, hey, what else? Look at this spa. So think of, if you're able to get, I was talking to somebody who's trying to sell bikes, for example. Very interesting. Hey, this bike would be really relevant for you. Why don't you get a Ducati? You don't have a budget, but you're already making him think. If not Ducati, what else? Right? You're just engaging the guy. Just think about that scenario that way.
That's right. All of this, the more you train, the more data that you feed into it as the pipe, the better does it get, the more accurate does it get, right? So another interesting, and this is slightly moving away from the topic of how do I get those interesting experiences on your portal, provided we create those interesting experiences, and if you want to just know what is the sentiment out there, right? Like most of you ran big sales during Diwali, and probably you're having, and you'll have a whole bunch of analytics around how well it proceeded, what was my sales, etc. But what if there are subtler nuances that you want to understand just in terms of how you're being perceived? And just to, like, this is really top of the mind for many of us, like at least for me. So I'm still trying to understand if this is a search that I'm doing, you will understand across the websites in India, which are published in English, what is the general sentiment analysis. So as you can see, roughly about 83% feel very positive about the election win, right? And it's only about 17%. And the top keywords, this is your text analysis. These are the search keywords that's happening across these different websites. And these are the broad websites where you have very positive sentiments related to these topics. So supposing you're running a brand campaign, you just want to know how your brand is being perceived. Or if you're trying to come up with like a naming for your sale, right? Like that's quite an important thing because that comes across different media for promoting that particular sale or campaign. This could be interesting tools, and this is making text analytics real and sentiment analytics real for you. So I'd like to switch gears here. So till now what I showed you was your first engagement with customer. How could I make that a lot more interesting? Now that you assume that you won the customer, he's actually placed an order. Now comes like the tough back work which not many of us appreciate or understand, which is right from your warehouses to your delivery teams, right? What can data and analytics do here? Let me take you through an example that we did. JJ Foods is a food service company based out of the United States. And you know, they have their warehouses like many of you have. They have standard pickers, they have dispatchers, then they have drivers. And when an order comes in, I'm not standardizing this, but I still want to leave this thought with all of you here is, many of this could be manual today. Maybe your pickers are getting all of the orders that we are placing in like papers, where they have to go to different zones inside warehouses to pick those up. And then it goes into the dispatcher who needs to check this. The intention that this is what Shamik was talking about in his demo was, there are two parts to it. One is just automating all of this through your tools and technologies, which is probably what you're seeing out here. It's an application just to move that manual and automate it through technologies. The second part is what Shivir spoke about. Now that I have all the orders right here on my application, which my picker uses, so he can take the first order, understand which zones inside the warehouse I need to take, put that in, give it to the dispatcher. But interestingly, you also have data about returns, which comes back into your warehouse. And you also have data about where those returns came from, which are the vendors that have supplied for this. And the minute you combine these three data together, right from the data of your orders, to your returns, to your vendors who've supplied it, there it is for you, for your machine learning to tell you, probably this vendor should not be up your radar in procuring these kind of materials because your return rates are higher. And that's what we've kind of done for, this is a quick walkthrough of their demo. I'll let it run and just talk through about what's happening. The good part is this is inside the warehouse, right? But the minute the driver takes it from the dispatcher and is going to go give it to every individual's house, like a customer like me, most of us do route optimizations. We understand saying what's the shortest route so that I have maximum deliveries, or I optimize the truck space that I have to reduce my cost of deliveries. But the reality is probably you want a little real-time monitoring there as well. Like for example, your shortest optimized route is more congested, so it's easier if I take another route. In that way I could cover 2 more orders in the same, but still under the same timelines of delivery. Think of it, right? Like working people like me, I'd love to pay that extra and get that delivery today. But in many cases, what I see on the site is, sorry, the slot is full, right? These are very interesting nuances of clubbing your data along with real-time data, plugging into it to make that experience for your end consumers very well. So I'm going to skip through this. We can talk if any of you are interested on this module, probably post the sessions. And the last thing, just in the scheme of things that I was trying to tell you, right from getting your customer on your page, getting him to place the order, then about your warehouse and delivery to the final consumer. And now that I've got my product, let's say I want to call you and talk to you for whatever reasons, right? And that's what this comes in. And this is to what Shivir was talking about. We call it like consumer 360 or say customer 360. Now supposing I'm calling your call center, right? Like I'll tell you a typical example that worked with me. All of us have internet service providers at home, so do I. And I'm calling him saying, hey, I've exceeded the limit and I really want to reset so that I'm getting out of that super slow speed that I'm getting at the internet. I do not want him to do upselling to me now. I do not want him to tell, please go download the application so that you can see your data. I know all that. What I want you to do for me now is to tell me how you're going to fix my usage rates, right? So all that means is you're giving all of this data at the hand of that telecaller so that because he's not going to magically know that I'm super irritated. Because I would have already placed like 3 complaints and I'm just waiting for him to solve that for me. So in this dashboard you can see, it's a demo instance, so bear with me, it's a little banking focused. But what I want to want all of you to take away from this is, there are 3 complaints, but it's still in the yellow state. So it's not like burning hot or red, which first needs to be worried about when the caller sees me calling him. And it also gives a usage pattern of me, right? For example, what are the usual payment instances that I talk about? I'm using very little, say, electronic fund transfers. So why don't you talk about that to me? Like in the same example of my internet service provider, every time I call him, there's just one thing they tell me saying, madam, have you downloaded the application? It's very interesting. I've already done that. Tell me something new. Why don't you tell me that I've been using my internet plan and exiting it every single month for the last 6 months? Give me a new promo that's available for you. It's all there, but it's all there in different systems. It's just that you put all of that together in a very, very simple dashboard. It looks easy, but the interesting part is the data sources, the format of data is very different for each of these styles to come live. And I'm sorry for this, but actually there is a part of this demo which also brings in the social, like for the internet it's not loading up. If it does, you can see that I'm a heavy Twitter user on your brand handle, so you can realize that as well. And you'll be able to see my entire customer journey with you, which means where have I done what, how many times have I reached out to you, etc. So that's the quick set of demos that I wanted to show you. In a nutshell, what I wanted to leave with you is there are different possibilities today thanks to technology, right from engaging with your customers to what you want to do at your back end to how do I make that conversation with my customer very, very interesting. It's more on how we interpret and how we implement it with respect to your business problems. The only approach I would like you all to take here is just tell us what's the business problem you want to solve. It's our problem to solve the data, our problem to solve how to technically implement it for you, it's not yours. So let us know that and the rest will make it happen for you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.